Most people wait until everything's perfect to start a business, but not James Wells. He booked a high stakes demo before he even had a printer, and he turned that into a six-figure anchor client. In today's episode of the Wall Print Chats, we sit down with James Wells from Wall Space Innovations, and this one is packed. James went from building power lines by day to building a mural business by night. And he did it the way we always preach: sell before you invest. James took the playbook and ran with it, securing a 5-figure university client and using the exact tools and techniques that we preach to grow a real, scalable wall printing business. From building agency partnerships to mastering production on complex jobs, he's showing what's really possible when you go all in. If you're thinking about what it really takes to start and grow a wall printing business, this episode will give you the honest, behind-the-scenes look. And if you're new to wall printing, head to the link below to download our buyer's guide. Let's get into it. All right, we are back for another episode of Wall Print Chats. We got our buddy here, James Wells from Wall Space Innovations, out of Harrisburg, Virginia. James, man, it is great to have you on the pod.
Great to talk to you guys.
Dude, you are definitely one of my favorite operators. Don't tell the other operators, but you're up there as one of my tops. Because mostly, and I think we'll jump right into it here, but mostly it's because of like how you approach the whole industry was very much in line with a lot of our preaching about going out and getting sales before you purchase a machine, like kind of be understanding of what it's going to take to get there. And like, you can do a lot of things up front. And then when you do it, be aggressive about the investment and like get after it. And like your story is one of my favorites I've heard of, like how you went about it and how this. So why don't we start this whole thing off? Just like, let's give a rundown. Go ahead and tell me what you remember about how you came into this whole thing and how we met and kind of where we are today.
I mean, honestly, I was just on my phone scrolling. I mean, I can go back a little further because I know you guys have a sense of humor. So I was scrolling and I saw, I just got done building power lines for the day. It was hot, and I saw this guy and his dad that were doing pretty well for themselves and working out of their garage, and they had just orders stacked up in the garage, and they sold. I don't know what you want. I guess I'll just say it. They sold dick-shaped charcuterie boards. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
with the family name on it. And I was like, man, I'm doing something wrong. Like that this is even possible. And I did. I just sat down one evening and I said, Lord, I want to do something I've never done. I want to be better.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Johnny Cash man. And I just flat out told him, I said, if you paint the line, I'll walk it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, sure.
it was like 2 days later, a machine that paints in lines showed up and on my scroll, and I got in touch with you guys and came down, put my hands on the machine. Spent the day with Liam and Marc, and when I left, I guess the final part of the sale was, go home and see what kind of business you could possibly screw up. And Marc gave me a concept ink hat, said, go home, act as if you work for us. Here's our Instagram. Show what you would be able to do and produce, and just see how quick you could, or what it's going to take to be in this.
James, I love that.
And
I've heard that story like 3 or 4 times now, and every time you tell it, I absolutely love it. It's like it's
it was,
absolutely
but I
correct,
mean, it was you couldn't have picked a better way to put it to me. It's just, just pretend you work for us and like you're already established and go for it.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
Context,
and
this was like what? 8 months ago? Like we're less than a year?
No, it was a year and a half ago. It was
year and a half ago. Okay.
December of 23 is when I
Shoot,
came
okay.
down. Is when I came down and put hands on. So December like 27th, I went at it as I'm going to go to the top and work my way down. As far as like the market. So I went to LDD Blue Line, which is an architect firm that has an interior design department here in Harrisonburg. And I walked in with my collared shirt and my concept ink hat, and I walked in and just showed them a video or two and the Instagram, and honestly, the guy's first words were, "Where the hell have you been for the last 10 years?" And I was like, "Well, this is brand new. I'm bringing it to the valley." And he said, "Well, everyone that needs to see this is on vacation right now. It's Christmas. Can you do a demo on January 11th?" And I was just like, "Yep, I can do a demo for you." And exchanged information and everything. And I walked outside, and I guess reality hit. Like, mind you, I just agreed to a demo in what 11, 15 days, and I didn't have, much less the machine. I didn't have the money, and I just agreed to do a demo in a couple days. And I
Yeah.
sat down on the street, and there's people walking back and forth, and I just looked up and I was like, "What in the hell have I just done?" But I went, and I'd been doing some reading and learning, and I learned that I had a rental house, I had an equity line, and so I went and took out the equity line to buy the machine, but you couldn't get the money for 6 weeks, and I was like, "Well, I'm in trouble."
Yeah.
And but luckily my dad and a good friend of mine were able to front me the money. I signed a 90-day agreement to have their money back, and I had it back in 2 weeks. It
Nice.
didn't take the full 6 weeks to close on it. But yeah, I went down and got the machine, and came back, and thanks to Liam and Mark, they walked me through a couple days of learning. Uh, and I went and had a makeshift easel because I hadn't bought an easel yet, and
Right.
I printed on a piece of that brick faucet, or however you say it,
Hmm.
and it was just I think it was a Discord image, just something pretty good quality, and I printed it for them, and they just immediately started naming projects that were coming up, that they were like, "I think we can use it here, this would be cool here," and it took. I went back to work building power lines for a little bit, and it took 6 months, and they had a project for me, and it was actually because when I bought the machine, I had left a bag of the vertical axis down there, and I showed up, and I was like 3 feet short of the height they needed. Until they got it mailed to me, we built a box and raised it up enough to make that job do. And then that one had the white ink that was 45 feet long. So, and it was on
Jeez.
dark purple. So I had to stay the whole print through because I couldn't stop it and let that
Right.
ink settle, because it was gonna show.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was just like a timeline with a bunch of words, but it was 45 feet long, and took me right at 18 hours.
Oh man, that's
They,
trial by fire right there.
Yeah,
yeah,
nothing
that
quite
one
like
was
cutting your teeth on a 40-footer, man. That's just like,
like right, like the first big job was uh, uh it was they let me come in at midnight. The cops came in and checked on me, but
Yeah.
the university police, but yeah, they let me come in at midnight, and I finished at 6 o'clock the next evening.
That's an epic start, man, to the ding. I mean, that can be good and bad. Obviously, if I was giving you advice, I would say like, hey, like warm up with a few easy ones, get used to some of the basics, just
Yeah.
just because, right? But the reality is doing a 40-footer like that with white, with all that, like, everything is going to seem relatively achievable past that point, right? Once you've knocked out a behemoth like that one, it's becomes a lot easier to understand, what you're doing when you sign up for bigger jobs.
Well, and too, that one I failed to mention was for James Madison University, which that
Right.
one was like I got to get my foot in the door, you know.
Definitely.
And it was funny because when I did the one part was the timeline, the other one was four trapezoid shaped images, and I was like halfway through them, and the one lady that's over, I guess resident, either she's over something with like final decisions on construction, and she walked in and she said, "I don't care what your prices are. If you print it on the wall, the kids can't get it off."
Yeah.
And that's what led to the job I'm on now. Is like she came by the other day, and she was like, "Yeah, these have more color. I really like this.
Yeah, man.
And
You're
that
into
and the
some
fact that
you're into some big stuff now, dude. It's like that's the whole point of like what's hard to predict. People always ask, like, what's the ROI on this machine? It's like, well, I don't know. If you fall into James Madison University within 3 weeks, like pretty quick, actually, right?
yeah.
But yeah, I know if you don't, right, it can be 2 years. It kind of depends on how you approach it, which is why I love your approach, James. And I mean, not for nothing, I think you, of all of our operators, took the most literal approach when I was like, go and do this. You're the only one that actually understood. Like, I mean,
literally put on the hat
Yeah,
and
no,
walked out.
I did.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, right.
I was like,
I'm not making it up.
the first impressions, the biggest. And I mean, that guy, Lydia, they actually, they got me in and got JMU's attention. So now I'm working not only through James Madison, but Blue Line has picked up another job at Madison that, this another trial by fire. This one, it starts at 10 feet off the ground and then goes to 17. And these are both 45 feet long.
This scaffolding dilemma, which is again, it's kind of a mixed bag here. Like one thing that's interesting to point out about a scaffolding. Okay, people always want to know, if our print height on most machines is around, say 12, 13 feet. How do you go above that? Let's say, like in your case, I think you told me it was a gymnasium or something like that.
Yeah, it's in a gym.
Gym. So you can picture like the walls are really big and like, if they have bleachers or something that want to be up, like how do you deal with that? And the answer is pretty obvious. You lift the machine up on scaffolding. That can be trickier than it sounds, right? You want to make sure your scaffolding secured is one of the big ones, right? You probably want to contract a scaffolding company who specializes in that to do it. So you got to factor that into your price. That said, there is one major advantage to a scaffolding job, which is that like no one's going to be up there on the scaffolding except for you. So you can get away with murder basically, right? Because no one's ever really going to be viewing that thing from very close. So there's a lot more upfront work with scaffolding to make it work. But the blessing is like you can typically run those things in 2-pass or some fast setting because the detail work is just no one's ever going to see it. Now, is that the case for yours? Do you feel like you can get away with a bit more, or is this one of those unique ones where you got to do both?
It's I'd say minimum I'm gonna be able to do 4, but I'm gonna play with it. Luckily, this one's with that Blue Line group, and they did the designs, and she actually was able to break each wall into, I believe, 3 or 4 sections.
That's perfect.
So
That's
because
exactly right.
the way she did it was it's in an ROTC gym,
Nice.
and it's like the American flag on one end, and then there's like 10 or 12 different group insignias, but
Cool.
they're
That's gonna look awesome. Yeah.
the like the bottom line is halfway is like offset and is in the center of the gap of the top line. So she actually broke it down to where this image will end here. I have to back measure this much and take off. So we've established where they understand how the machine operates, and they're able to design
So
and
James,
help me out.
just to any of our listeners here, Clauser, why don't I pass this over to you? Explain the logic behind why you break it up. I call it the video game save. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Save your progress.
It's a checkpoint in a 40-foot print. If the longer you're printing, the higher the likelihood is that there's something that can come up that can ruin the print. There's a engineering approach to this where in a rockfall zone, if you're driving along a mountain pass and there's a rockfall zone, the way to minimize risk is to increase the speed because you spend less time doing in that zone. And so with every checkpoint, you're able to at least get that far into the print. And if you got a clean break, if something goes wrong afterwards, you're able to kind of paint over to that last last clean printed area. And therefore you're not having to repaint and reprint the whole thing, time and money on site. So finding a natural break in an image. But what's great is like when you start working with designers, we say natural break. A lot of people think straight line down the center. But even if you get a clean break, like you're saying, kind of an offset of logos or what have you, and there's a clean line, well, you can print that, back measure, and then print again. You're going to line yourself up nicely there, right? So that's it, man. If you can break up a 40-foot print into multiple prints, the risk, the stress alongside of doing a print like that, especially up at scaffolding. It also gives you a chance to kind of like come down from the scaffolding. If you're doing anything at height like that, you can't really be climbing up and down because the scaffolding is inherently going to wobble and you end up with, other artifacts. So giving you a chance to either go to the bathroom or
even break
And I
for the
think,
night.
yeah,
Rather
break
than
for
go
the night.
18 hours, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think, because I told her if I have to adjust that image any to be able to use that roller for the top, I said I'm going to. So it might sit 2 inches lower or whatever I've got to do. I said because I want to keep it steady. And on that, I would give her credit. Uh, we were standing in a meeting the other day, and the contractor, I asked if I could anchor the scaffolding to the wall so it was steady. And he said, "Yeah, that's not a problem." He said, I don't care to do a little bit of patchwork." He said, "I just think it's going to be a little visible down here." And I mean, immediately she said, "Well, I think it's going to be a little more visible if his machine's shaking in the image than some patchwork down here on the wall." And I was like,
Yeah,
"Get it, girl."
definitely. It is an interesting thing about this, especially as part of the sales cycle, is the idea that once you teach people how this works, what the benefits are, like they tend to evangelize you, right? So we love it. One of our stories is we were on a college campus, funny enough. We spent, because we were there probably for about 8 hours. It was in a major athletic building where tons of students and teachers and people were walking by. Plus, there was like a bit of hype around what we were doing. And early on, one of these guys came up to us. I think he was like a journalist. I think he covered like the sports teams or whatever.
Yeah, he was like working with the school newspaper or whatever.
Yeah. And he comes up and like, we're just chatting, really nice guy, super friendly, like very inquisitive, like was basically like going through 20 questions with us about what it was. And what was great was like for the next 4 hours, anybody that came up to like was standing watching it, he would go over and like explain how it worked. He was now preaching the word.
I had that experience 2 days ago because I've been on this job for a little over a month. Kind of following behind the finishers. As they get walls finished, I'm coming in.
Yep, sure.
But yeah, the general contractor, Madison's like they had the final inspection for certain things, and it was a group of probably 12 people. But I was standing there watching the print, and I could hear him in the back. He's like, "Yeah, when the light hits it, the UV ink's dry, and this, that, and the other." And I was just like, "You keep talking." I was like, "That's how I gotta do."
Yeah, that's why jobs beget jobs. That's exactly why we say anytime you're printing in public, treat it like a trade show, is exactly for that reason. Is like you wouldn't believe how many people are going to be going around talking about it, because it's true. I mean, just think about like one of the key points you said, and anybody looking at doing wall printing should keep this in mind, that like verticals are going to have certain trigger qualities that like are going to be guaranteed locks for this thing. And one of the biggest ones in schools or a facility like this is durability. Has to be. And one of the worst things about vinyl is like, even if the kids don't get up there and pick at it or do what they do, right? Like it actually is kind of it's a sticker on a wall. So it will bubble, it'll peel. You change your humidity settings on your AC over the summer. Like all of a sudden you got major quality problems. The fact that when we print it, like becomes an organic part of the facility and there's a very high degree of durability factor, major thing. Who wants to spend all this money, right, and then have it fail within a year? Like who wants to do that? That's not quality. And it looks very much like a detractor of the space. If it's like you see bad vinyl, you're like, oof, like that doesn't scream quality to me about these kinds of institutions. And a place like James Madison, like they can't afford that. That's a big part of what they sell, especially in a residency.
And this is a brand new building, so
yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, good tip, man. I love to hear how your story went. I love the leap of faith. I mean, I've had countless conversations with people about purchasing equipment, and there's no denying it. The German wall pen is an expensive machine. That's upwards. I think
that too. I've had a lot of people. They'll ask how much is the machine, and I'll tell them. And the one guy, he came back. He said, "Man, you weren't lying." I said, "No, I mean, I got no reason to lie to you."
Yeah, totally. And that's a good thing to realize too in your story. It's like how different you would have felt taking that loan from your father and your friend, or even doing it on your rental property, if you hadn't gone out there and seen that, like, wow, actually, like, turns out my biggest problem might be delivering the machine, might be getting this thing in my hands and doing it.
That's the issue I'm running into again is
yeah, totally. Absolutely, which we're familiar with, and you know, part of our arrangement always with our operators or anyone in our system is if there's something we can do, especially like the scaling problems people have. That's one of the most fascinating things that's happening in this industry today. Is like we're starting to get critical mass of these machines out there, so you're starting to see people. You know, we probably have about 4 or 5 operators that are in need, in need of a second machine. So how do you go about doing that, and what does that look like?
Yeah, in need of scaling their business. They're kind of reaching
Correct.
their capacity. There's a bunch of ways to be able to do that. Part
Yeah.
of being part of a community is getting other people on board, or bigger, better, faster equipment. There's a few ways to approach it, but it's nice to see that like there are people that have followed this roadmap. Something that we had experience with, but hadn't really had a chance to see it manifest in other people's businesses. And then here we are, with guys like you, kind of every checkbox kind of along the way you've hit, all the way from like creating a partnership with a design agency who's not only owning the graphics for you, which is like, you can't understate that enough. Like having ownership over the graphics and people who understand what you're trying to do, create graphics that are easier for you to print with. It makes your whole life that much easier. And then advocating for you at the client space to like, just put a few holes in the wall. It's going to make this whole thing easier. Keep the scaffolding safe. When you're having to do that yourself, possible, but it adds to the sales pitch. And so you're kind of building now up a network of people who are all incentivized towards the same thing. We want to get great images on the walls at these institutions, and we're all aligned to doing that. And when everybody's on board and you're not having to convince people why and how and all of that, then a lot more people are going to come in and support exactly what you need to do. Yeah, great. We'll put a couple holes in the wall. The scaffolding's not going to move. You have no worries. Let's shrink the image 2 inches. Like we're going to make sure that it's as easy to execute as possible. It's still going to look great. You're going to get all of the benefits of working with us. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn when I started this, was that like people are a lot more accommodating than I would have given them credit for. I just assumed that like, well, it's got to be this way, so I'm going to like bend over backwards and do things that are going to make my life significantly harder to try to accommodate this like 2 inches of margin, when at the end of the day, presented in the right way, they're like, absolutely no problem. Let's make this. Everybody wants the job to be easy.
For anyone listening that doesn't know this, Marc is Canadian, so this is where he's just like, he's too polite and too nice. He just couldn't go out. He couldn't even ask, like, does anyone have a spare hammer? No, he had to go home and get his. That kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. All right, James, let's recap really quick here, because I'd love to get to like a little bit more of like, I think the direction that this industry is headed. You're kind of on the forefront of it, but you basically went out there and pre-sold, and you pre-sold like a big fish, which is excellent. Like why waste your time with smaller jobs when you know what you want to do, right? Grow the business and scale. That got you into not just a relationship with them, but also a major client, an anchor tenant with the university, which has now got you to the position where your biggest challenge is how do you get more printing done with them to make it cheaper, more effective, and easier on yourself, where you're not exactly doing 18-hour days. Like admittedly you can, but that really shouldn't be the purpose of your business, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just to for me to remember the scope of this project at James Madison, you're doing like the residence building. You have what, 40 plus prints in the hallways that are kind of 4 by 10?
It started off, so the building is like U-shaped, and at the tip of the U's is stairs. Then in the arch of it, there's 2 elevators and another stairwell. So there's 5 prints on 5 levels, 5 floors. All are 40 inches tall. 3 of them on each floor are 84 inches, and the other ones are 107.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one on the ground floor. That was the initial proposal,
Right.
that I started on, and I was there for I think a week, and I got an email from a woman at the university that said, "Hey, here are the files or samples for the ground floor or something." And I was like, and I looked at the images and I was like, wait a minute, I've never seen these before. And my contact at JMU, I texted him and I was like, hey, I'm getting an email about some images. Like, did something change? And he said, no, I need another proposal for 8 more. On the ground floor. And I was like, I'm not even like, I just started this one and you all are adding I was like, okay. And mind you, there's a timeline on this because they want it done before kids come back.
Right.
And then on top of that, the second floor has a statue of James Madison, and I was standing there watching it print, and I was like, some kid is going to be artistic with a Sharpie on this man's face. I was like, there's like 400 rooms in this building, and they're doubles, so there's going to be a lot of people in here. Somebody's going to be
Well, James, you
artistic, and
thought of it. You thought of it,
yeah,
so somebody else is going to think of it. Right?
exactly. I was like, and so Marc had mentioned that mural guard before, and that's actually what I'm doing here this afternoon. I got to go over and I'm gonna try that stuff out on some stuff, and
Nice.
I had mentioned that to them, and they're like, I'm gonna need a quote on that as well.
Yeah.
They
Nice.
said if you get it, yeah. So there, I'm at that. I have a guy that just retired that is a friend of my wife, and I think he's gonna help me if this stuff works. Then I'm gonna team up with him to maybe be going behind me and putting that coating on. I have 3 people that are basically waiting on jobs on machines to get here.
Right.
Because it's very hard to hand a $70,000 machine to somebody and say, here, you're responsible for this.
Totally.
You do so I have 3 people. The one guy has his own 3D printing business and stuff, and he lives over next to UVA. And I was like, hey, I will give you a machine to keep at
Yeah.
home if we can get in at UVA, which I'm learning through James Madison. They're like their own government, kind of.
Yeah.
You gotta hit each department, man. There's no like, hey, can you send out a mass email? You have to
Right.
find each department, like the people that reached out were the engineering department. And of course
No
they
way.
put in, which I can't remember. Somebody had mentioned it to them, or somebody had been in Memorial and saw the first job I did.
Yeah, what we found worked there was when we were printing for the department that hired us. It was like, hey, if you know anybody in the other departments, like now's would be a good time to like see if they're interested in coming by and seeing something they've never seen before. And then you get the like handshake, you get your demo, which is a paid job for the other department, and you swap business cards. Great, I'll reach out to you. I'm sure you got some stuff. Once this job's done, I'll walk over to your building and we can take a look at what's going on, and you can really start snowballing department on department on department from there, right?
Yeah,
And you're getting a free trade show.
yeah, and then of course through this job, people are seeing it. They tell their friends, and I had one guy. I need to actually contact him. He wants a Washington Commanders something on his man cave wall
Yeah.
before football season. They have. I think he's part of like a big fantasy league and he has a man cave, and
Yeah.
he wants some cool stuff
You
on
know
the
what?
wall.
That's a good promotion. Anyone who's listening, go out there and do fantasy football trophy murals. So if you win the
Yeah.
championship or you get a sacco punishment, like you got to live with this thing on your wall for a year. that would be awesome. Yeah, I could see guys going
And
for that.
but I will say these jobs. I mean, I know you all are a couple years ahead of me in this, but you literally have to get out here working to learn stuff because this job's taught me. I think when I contacted you all the other day about it still looks like it's raised, but it's how the image was made. Um, it has like a faded section in it, so there's not as much ink, but then you've got those really black numbers that are actually printed on top of that other layer. And
Right. So for anyone
it has,
listening, James is talking about when you put coats of paint over ink, if black especially and lettering, like it's thicker because you're using more ink. Basically, you're mixing all the colors. So when you paint over it, like it telegraphs a lot more than the other stuff. And something like text or numbers, like your brain's gonna see that telegraph come through as opposed to just say like a random line or whatever. So what we usually say is for those particular cases, you want to sand down the edges. Like you want to just take some sandpaper and hit it and go over.
Yeah,
it
any graphic with hard lines, when you paint, you can see. But like this type of stuff here, where you got faded bricks and texture, or what's behind Marc, like regular coat of paint, and you're fine. But it's as soon as you start getting these big, bold letters, lots of ink, and like very crisp, hard lines, it's not like it's very, not like there's very much difference, but it's a different enough, especially on a blank white wall, where it becomes an issue. One thing that I did do, James, that I didn't mention when we were trying to troubleshoot that is if you can line up your next print exactly, then the telegraph doesn't actually matter because you're just going right on top of it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if
that
kind of
one
like works out.
That one, it probably would. I didn't even want to risk it. I was just like,
absolutely.
I feel behind. But the other day, I was able to get 3 prints in a day.
Nice.
So, and they all, everything went smooth. Where I'm printing on carpet, I did figure out I cut 3x3 squares and put underneath of plywood, real thin plywood, and put underneath each foot. And it took a lot of the shaky wobble.
Try taking the caps off and just doing the steel?
I thought about it, but I was like, I might try it. This is working.
I mean, if it works, like, it works, man.
Yeah. And the feet, I wasn't. Which now thinking about it, the bars would probably sit more on the carpet too. So.
So for anyone listening, the problem with putting your any machine with a track on carpet is that carpet has like a natural squish, which means that you can get some, it's harder to level, first of all, because the weight as it travels over the feet, the machine's going to compress it or not. And then as well, it's going to be a little bit less stable overall, just because it's not like a hard surface that it's referencing. So what we're talking about is mitigating that by adding, plywood blocks underneath it. It's a great way to do it. We used to use baseboard, right? So we'd buy long strips of, 4-inch wide baseboard and put them underneath there. We actually used that as our track for a lot of years. Hey, Cluster.
Yep.
that was how we just rolled the wall pen on the MDF base track, like you'd buy from Lowe's. But yeah, these kinds of things you're not wrong, James. It's exactly why you want to kind of get out there and also like not be super intimidated by getting out there. And we call it getting bloody, like get in the fight. Once you get punched in the face, it's like you realize it's not anywhere near as bad as you thought. Like once you have to paint a wall, once you get through it, I'm not advocating that it's good, but it's nowhere near as bad as it sounds, especially on a big job of like get out there and get going, because you'll learn these lessons, you'll solve these problems, and that just empowers you to do more.
And it has to happen.
And I think going in with the right mindset of like, it's going to happen. Guaranteed you're getting into this business.
It has to. I was fighting one yesterday. I got maybe a quarter of the way through one of those, which these images, they're square, they're rectangles, but they have bars through it and that aren't inked. They're actually shapes on the wall that make a square.
Negative space. Yeah, negative space.
And which, like Clouser said, the lines show up through the middle of that thing, man. But I took sandpaper and just roughed it right through there, and I didn't get the numbers good enough on this last one. Which the first one I did, we decided we didn't like the spacing. When you come through the door, it was just a little too far down. So that one it looked great, but I had to paint over it, and we're shifting it down like a foot. But it is. But I want to keep them. And I had one where I think I reached out to if there's fingerprints or anything on the wall, it will show. Especially if it's like really light sky, it'll show through it. And I pointed it out to them. I was like, "What do you want me to do about? Do you want to redo it?" And they said, "No, like we're not worried about that. The detail looks great. He told me, he said, I appreciate your attention to detail." I was like, well, this is a relationship that I want to keep. Like, I'm not
honest
Walmart.
James Wells over here. Cause my advice to anybody, like, don't be pointing that out to anybody, man. Are you crazy?
Well, yeah, if it's minor things, but I had one the other day where, which is my fault. I knew better. But I guess the drive wheels, the one had kind of come in on the axle. And I stopped it at the bottom, and I was like, do I try to do this or not? I was like, I can do it.
Famous last words.
Yeah, it went boom. I said, how much did it move? I moved it where I thought, and when it started, and I did like an idiot. I was like, they won't notice it as it ran, and I let it run the whole way through.
Yeah.
And the general contractor came through the door, and he goes, "They gonna make you redo that one?" I said, "For what?" And he said, "That line right there." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm redoing this." I was like, and I showed pictures to a couple people, and they were like, "What's the line right there?" And I was like, "Yeah."
It's funny what stands out to people, man, because like a classic operator challenge is like you're way too fixated on details that they can't see, and you're like, "Oh, that one's not that bad." It's like it's all anybody talks about. It's funny how that all works out.
Yeah.
As a tip, James, whenever we need to line up prints, which happens for various reasons, or where you're stopping halfway, and for whatever reason you need to reline it up, definitely throw that clear low tack vinyl and try it until you feel like you've dialed it in. That's the best way by far. It's more time consuming, but at least you get a few tries to see, like, do I think this is going to look good? Do I think I'm lined up? We've had operators do some insane stuff with that.
Yeah. I think the tip in this scenario is if the machine is at risk of self imploding and you see something that might be wrong, let it run, man. Just like if it's, there's no,
if it's going to mess up, don't mess it up. Like, don't mess it up yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a hard. I learned that lesson like a dozen times.
And if it does mess up, just stop it. Like if it's pretty noticeable, just stop it and paint over it. It's less to paint over.
It's interesting though, man. That's always that's a tough one, right? Because like if you were to do a blanket statement on that, there'd be a lot of reprinting for details nobody cares about. Like the fingerprints would be one that you absolutely noticed and can see, right? But they didn't, or they don't care.
No, it's more along the lines like what James was talking about is his wheel came off the bearing, so it was like slightly off the back bearing, and so it was still rolling. The machine was still functioning, and it was like, well, I should probably fix that. But for me, it was like, if the machine's still rolling and the machine isn't at risk of actually like rolling off the track, like then I would just sit there, be extra attentive, and hopefully let it finish its thing and correct it. Kind of.
But like I said, I was upset at first, but then I was like, look, now like just,
dude,
and that's where I say yesterday I was battling well, like I said, it had those bars, and when it just started getting like overspray on it and in those bars, and I was like, what's going on here? And so I adjusted it in a little tighter to the wall, and I was like, what's going on? Well, then one, it was static on the wall. I've been noticing a lot of static. I'm gonna try a couple different things. I did notice if you use like window cleaner, sometimes you will see where your fingers were on the wall. So I kind of quit doing that, just kind of wiping it. And then, but it kept doing it, and I was like, what's going on? And I got to noticing when it would get through a certain section, the gap would get bigger, and then but there was like I guess an extra low spot in the wall, or it was curved, but it was, I couldn't get it any tighter to the wall, and it just, after it went over that spot, it quit doing it. And I'm just going to go back with a little bit of, I'm assuming I can just take a little bit of alcohol and wipe down the wall and to get that overspray to disappear, because some of it kind of stayed.
Alcohol, but even what's the word I'm looking for? A Mr. Clean
magic
eraser. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Just a little bit of overspray.
Man, you could always, if it's in the negative space spot, you could tape the image and then paint it.
As well.
Just paint the little bits, cover them up.
But if it's overspray, usually the droplets don't actually hit the wall and spread. They kind of just live there. So if you can just knock them off, even a microfiber.
Well, this one it kind of smeared, like just enough to where it's still on there. Most of it, I'll just take a rag and wipe down through there, and it comes right off. But this one spot, I'm assuming it's because it was so far back off the wall, it got a little more. But like I said, lesson learned. Now I know if it starts doing that, it's definitely because the head's too far away from the wall.
Yeah, that's a challenge, man. And I mean, that's a lot of what you're describing when you say you battle and you do these things. I would say 50% of it's experience, just like learning to do smarter art allocation, showing up and knowing what you're to expect and how to troubleshoot. But a lot of what we're noticing too is sort of, if you had to pick something, a trait of your machine that you wanted today, tell me that it wouldn't be reliability. Tell me that, like, when you hit go, you could just be more sure that image was going to go the way that you want.
Yeah. And you all are aware of it, but like, this is the fourth head nozzle I've put in on this job, but they're all the newer. That was the last old mod. And and especially after working with Justin and them the other weekend, the tricks he showed me, dude, that's really improved.
James is talking about our good friend Justin Whitty, who's codename Dragon. He is like,
that man, that dude is.
He's smart.
That dude is awesome, man.
Print heads. Yeah.
We're
gonna get him on the. We'll get him on the pod, and we'll go through in detail his stuff. If you're ever wondering how print head cleaning works, like, this guy knows.
Yeah, he's for context, he's one of our oldest operators, and he is now incredibly valuable member of the community, the wall printing community, because of all of his experience, and he kind of took ownership over understanding how these print heads work and cleaning, and so. I love hearing that guys like Justin are able to help guys like you, James.
He's awesome.
Man, Justin is just so knowledgeable.
Shout out to Freedom Inc. in South Carolina there for those guys that are doing some business down there.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my friends sent me a screenshot of Facebook yesterday, and it was vertical wall printing, this, that, and the other. And I could see it was a wall print. It said Freedom Inc. And I was like, wait a minute. And I looked it up, and when it said Greenville, South Carolina, I was like, oh, that's Justin.
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. No, that's great, man. Well, I think what's going to be interesting here, James, and that we're here for the journey with you, is the scaling effect. I think some things to sort of recap that you said is, like, it goes understated. I think when you first look at this, the cool factor of the print technology, the nature of the work, is very interesting for anybody who would make a good employee, I guess, is the way I'm trying to describe this. Is like, by consequence of doing what we do, it's like you're going to have people lined up wanting to work with you, because it's a really interesting thing that we do. Murals is a pretty fun gamut. So as you're looking to scale, finding labor is like one advantage you have in this space that many other places don't, is like there's a natural draw for people to want to kind of come and get involved.
Oh yeah, people ask me while I'm sitting there, you got a job? And I'm like, it's just me. Totally. It's just me right now. But there again, exactly. I did, like you said, I set out to build a scalable business. And it take, you can't just hire anybody and everybody. I'm
right
at this point. My like that guy said, my attention to detail. I'm not a big corporation that can afford to have not a tarnished name, but that affiliated with me right now. I need to.
Yeah, there's kind of two ways to scale, right? There's bringing on employees and potentially an additional machine, which has its own challenges and costs, especially if you're buying, $70,000 pieces of equipment, or, the industry starts to evolve and you can get a machine that outputs twice as fast as what's available, right? You increase your speed. Well, you've just doubled your productivity. Now you don't have to deal with the labor overhead for, a while before you have to, I need to scale that way. So, it's interesting as more guys like you are kind of start reaching the limits of capacity. It tells us that the industry is evolving to a place where, there's going to be room for more work, more machines, just bigger and better, which is exciting.
And I find too, with it's the relationships you make. The lady that actually designed all the project I'm on now, she designed all the images. It's a Hive Creative Group out of Charlottesville, and she wants to do because this was a lot of work for them as well, and she wants to do a big kind of collaborative video at the end. And she said she let me use. She's like, "This is what you need to send UVA, Virginia Tech. This is what you need to send them in an email." Because I've done I guess you call it the cold call emails, where I just went through every department email. I had the copy paste email, the what do you want to call it? Generic email that I
Template.
just, yeah, the template.
Yep.
And, but I had a couple people, we'll save your information, this, that, and the other. But it's when that just had my website tag to it. But I feel like if they open an email and there's this, here's what I did at James Madison, we can do the
Totally.
same for you all.
Yeah.
And at that point, just on this job, 2 machines would be, great, because I could knock a floor out in a day.
Yeah.
Because I'm printing 50, 75 feet apart from each
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, you can
I
sort
could
them out
almost
closer to
walk
the
back
time.
and forth and run both of them, but I'd rather have somebody
Yeah.
there with me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's
Well, Liam's available. We basically ship him all over the country helping out, and he's got a machine. So if you decide you want to contract him out, you let us know, because we
hey,
we have a
it might happen, man, because
yeah.
they're talking deadlines, because they actually have, I guess it's Madison's Music Hall. They have a project we looked at months ago that I got an email the other day. Hey, the walls are ready. I don't even have images,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, definitely. And this is when you want to deliver every single thing and make it look easy. And, because it's going to have a momentum effect. If, like, just imagine, think about Amazon. It's like I order something, it shows up 2 days later. I'm definitely going to go back and order more packages. Like, it's just so handy and so convenient. Right. And if you can deliver that response to them where they're like, anytime we need a graphic, like, we throw it to James, he knocks it out in a day. It's like, they'll just keep finding ways to utilize you for space, and that's something we've commented on in previous podcasts, is like chicken and the egg of, like, you look at what the needs for graphics are today based on everybody else. They're basing it off of what vinyl can provide. Brick and mortar institutions, long production schedules, a lot more complication, quality concerns, like a lot of reasons why just the very service, the nature of the service industry isn't really conducive to a creative, I want it now attitude, right? And if you look at what graphics should be, it's like, it's way more fun when I snap my fingers, somebody shows up with a good attitude and a cool technology and, like, makes it look easy. It's like, dude, I'm going to use that a whole bunch, like it's not, you're not going to have problems gaining momentum on a university campus where the visual impact of brand is basically its entire value. Right. You think about how many kids wear the sweatshirt, right? Like, their whole bookstore is nothing but swag with their name on it. Well, what a lower hanging fruit for visual impact of your brand could you have than the walls of the institution itself? Right. And that's a huge thing you want to keep pushing, is like constantly reinforce with them. This is free real estate. You haven't utilized anywhere near as much as you could. And that's not your fault, right? But the big bad vinyl industry hasn't been nice to you, right? It doesn't work well. It's like, well, I'm here with my machines. Like, I'm going to, you notice how I pluralize that. I'm here with my machines, right? I'm going to take care of anything you guys need. I'm going to give you good pricing. We're going to form a very long-standing relationship. Because what you really want to aim at, James, to make this thing like a 10-year relationship, is get in there and show them that every season the football team wins the championship. Every time you have a new recruited class coming in for girls volleyball, like, you can get in there and knock out a print, like, showcasing whatever happened. Hey, we're the champions, whatever. I can get in there and knock that out for you in time for the bus coming home. You know what I mean? And that's where you're basically going to just live on that campus. Yeah.
I actually did that. I sent an email to Notre Dame. I was like, you guys need a Sugar Bowl mural. And they
there you go.
they said, we'll save your, that was one that said, we'll keep you in mind. But and it's, once I guess I had to tell myself, like, this business doesn't exist. This service doesn't exist. So one, we are all learning the do's and don'ts and what can happen, and and it sucks, but I had to tell myself, stop looking at it as a failure, look at it as a lesson.
There you go, man. There's that positive energy. James,
you
you're the best operator we got, man. That positive
well, I mean,
outlook.
it is. I come from a construction background, man, where you beat and bang and pry, and the first time I took a banana board out, I was like, I'm gonna break this. It just, how hard can you pull on it? But I will say, like, now I'm getting pretty smooth at it. The last month I've had plenty of practice, but it's
getting your reps.
But then again, after talking to Justin, I realize if I'm on a job like this, I mean, I'm gonna have to factor in a set of heads to
Yeah,
to
I mean
to
that's where it's interesting, man. It does, it gets interesting, and that's something that, like, I don't know. I think what we can do right now, James, is like let's call this part one. All right, and part two, I say we do at the end of the summer, and let's hear how this job went, what you ended up doing. It's a fascinating story arc because I think what we're going to see is a constantly evolving industry. Well, a lot of what you're describing is based around the technology as it stands today. We're seeing massive gains in the industry around wall pen, with wall pen. Lots of things are happening to improve on this because what everybody's chasing is the reliability. Everybody wants to hit go and set it, forget it. I don't care if it's 50 hoops I have to jump through and I got to do some black magic voodoo and slaughter a chicken before I, turn the machine on. If that makes it reliable, I'll do it. As any operator out there right now that's doing anything that's got the word 40 feet, words 40 feet in it would definitely agree. If I just knew I could, that's what I would do. And you're going to see an evolution of this technology coming to market. We predicted it for 2025. Lots of great things happening, lots of new things happening. So I say we put a pin in it for right now. Let's say this is the end of part one. James, phenomenal job getting out there and following the playbook, and look at where you are. We couldn't be happier for you. And, of course we're here to support you, but let's pick this up again and let's see what part two is, after you get this one under your belt. Let's get you scaled to like 3 or 4 universities. Let's get those 3 or 4 friends that want to work, and let's see what the enterprise level value of this business is, which is the number one thing people doubt when they look at this, when they first hey, it's never going to do this. It's too slow. It's like, man, we have barely even scratched the surface of what this industry can be once people realize, look at what you're doing with the university. How many campuses are there just in universities alone? How many places are like campuses that could use this kind of branding
with one guy?
Well, and the cool thing is a guy told me the other day, I think there's 4 or 5 more of these buildings in the future coming up.
Of course there are. They got a huge budget, man. And that's just one thing you're doing. You got the athletic department. You got every building on there arguably has the same challenge, right? And the funny part about a place like James Madison, I haven't been there, but I got to believe, given it's sort of southern, it's going to be a lot of brick and cinder block, and there's going to be an industrial level to like, well, how else are you going to get graphics on there, right? Like, what else are you going to do? This also has that benefit of being able to go on those odd materials, like.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, that's great, James. I appreciate you taking the time and telling your story, man. This has been exciting for us too, because like Marc said, this has been a kind of a picture perfect roadmap of what we'd want to see from anybody who's getting into this business, with all the hardship too. Again, it had not to sugarcoat it. It certainly hasn't been easy, but I think that's an important part of getting into this business and something we want to continue to highlight, because it is something I want everybody to be aware of when you start. But the opportunity is there. The business is there, and it's only growing. We're just scratching the surface. So again, thanks, man, for coming out, and we'll be chatting, in the background via WhatsApp.
I'm sure we'll be chatting. Yeah, I'm sure.
And just remember, Liam is for sale, so you just let us know, get us a decent offer.
Hey, man, he's been great as well. I can't thank you all enough for all. You all been. It's been good. And I'll say, like, the trip down there, the struggles were real, and coming down, chatting with you all, and Liam, and then Justin helping me out, it really kind of put things back in a good direction.
It's what we're here for, James. We're the recharge station, right? You come down, and we like to think of it as a wall printing lab. It's probably the only one of its kind where, like, we're not machine preference, we're not operator preference. Like, we have a very much an open door policy. If you've got something you want to try to do with wall printing or work with us, like, for anybody out there listening that's thinking about this stuff, like, we want you to get your hands on it so you understand what it is and what can be done. And that's not to say that you can't come back a year later, a year and a half later. There's lots. We'd love it. We'd be more than happy to buy you lunch and have you bring your machine, and let's see what we can do with it. Yeah.
And don't be, if I can give any tips, don't be afraid to give a free one away. It creates a relationship, something for social media. But I did a free one for one of the tattoo shops here in Harrisonburg. Just moved, and they were decorating. They're artists, man. They like to
of course,
to paint, and that's the type of work they want. And they had a card a lady drew on, and they wanted something outside on brick. This design that she had hand drawn, and we were able to blow it up, and I printed it outside their door.
Cool.
I mean, just that one alone, I think I'd been doing this for like 6 or 8 months. I might have had 50, 75 people view a video. That one, it was like 4,000 people, like, you know.
Nice. Super cool.
So, I mean, I did it for free just to help them decorate for the
Right.
move. And, you know, and it got me a little bit of attention. I'm not sure if that one stemmed to anything, but, you know, Madison's been
Hard
the
to
biggest
say,
one.
right?
It's exposure, right?
It's exposure and awareness. Yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome.
thank
Right
y'all
on,
for the invite, and it's always great chatting with you guys.
Yeah, likewise, man. Good luck with everything. Stay in touch, and we look forward to hearing how things go.
Yeah, looking
All right,
forward to
man.
round 2.
All right, buddy.
All righty. We'll see you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Wall Print Chats. James's story is proof that when you take action, even before everything is perfect, you create momentum. He followed the roadmap, trusted the process, and now he's running a real business with real results. If you got value from this episode, make sure to download our Wall Printer Buyer's Guide. The link's in the description below. It's packed with tools, tips, and insights to help you evaluate if wall printing is right for you. If you want to hear about the things that you shouldn't do before you start a wall printing business, check out the video here and learn from our mistakes. We'll see you in the next one.